Hi, my name is Agneya Singh. Thank you all for coming. Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here. It's very bright. I think I'll just give you guys a brief introduction on on my session today, Parde Ke Piche. I'm a filmmaker. I actually started out in documentary and photography in Delhi, and then I realized that I wanted to actually, tell stories through the medium of film. So I went to NYU, the Tisch School of the Arts, which is a film school, and I went through that whole process. I mean, where to begin? I think that I think cinema is one of the most powerful art forms in the world. Compared to the other art forms, it's relatively new. It's only about 100 years old. In fact, in India, we've just celebrated our 100 years of film, the first Indian film being made in 1913. So it's yeah. It's actually, well, if you compare it to, say, literature or poetry or, any of the other arts, theater, philosophy, which have thousands and thousands of years, you realize how it's actually a very short duration for an art form. But at the same time, I think that it is, incredibly diverse, it's incredibly complex, and there is a language of cinema, which I think we can also discuss. So I don't know how many of you guys want to be filmmakers or actors or work in, entertainment or documentary. But I will talk a bit about that. But I think before we really do that also, I feel that it's also important to understand the language of cinema, which is why I think that for the purpose of this session, I'll break it up into 3 different modules in the sense that we'll look at 3 films from the 20th century which were revolutionary in their context. And then I'll also talk a bit, of course, about my own journey and experience and my own first feature film, M Cream. A bit about the film. It's a film that was just released on the 22nd of July. Unfortunately, not in Jaipur because it's an independent film. It's a slightly different film. And as filmmakers, we're constantly grappling with that process, and it's of course a bit difficult to get smaller films out there. But the film was screened at the Jaipur International Film Festival last year, I think, and it was a wonderful response. So I think that I'll just get back to my notes. So we have 3 films that we'll be looking at today. The first one is, of course, Satyajit Ray's Pathar Panchali. Now, so basically, what I'm planning to do with this session is that I'm going to take you guys through these 3 films. I'm going to talk about why they were revolutionary in that context of when they were made, either in terms of form or in terms of content, in terms of style. Now, there's a lot that goes into a film. This is a session, Parde Ke Piche, where you obviously look at the film and you see a finished product, but there is so much blood, sweat, and tears that goes into the making of a film. There is, of course, the acting, there is the script, there is the cinematography, there is the mise en scène, which is basically the art direction, the way the frame is placed. There is the soundtrack, so many things, the editing, all of these things kind of come together to make the feature film, to make any film, even a short film, feature film, documentary. So it's a very collaborative process. It's a very immersive process. And of course, I would say, in a way, it's a very powerful art form because it brings a lot of the other art forms together. It brings storytelling, it brings acting, it brings music, all of these different art forms, poetry, into one medley of sorts. So I think that we will begin first with Pathar Panchali, which is a film by Satyajit Ray. And I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Satyajit Ray, but I hope all of you are, because he is probably the greatest Indian filmmaker to have ever lived. And he was a Bengali filmmaker. He actually started out in ad films. And this is his first film, his opera prima, first feature film, Pathar Panchali, which is basically, it's a story about a young girl, Durga, in a very poor setting in Bengal. And it's about her growing up in a village, in the village life, and the the trials and tribulations. And he actually made this film in 1955, which was a long time ago. And when he was making it, no one really understood what he was doing. He didn't get any support. But ultimately, some Americans, some American producers came across his work and they gave him some funding to finish his film. It was made under a hopeless condition, like many great films of that era were. And I think it really marks a turning point in Indian cinema. I think, of course, Satyajit Ray is far more widely recognized internationally even today than in his own country, unfortunately. I think if you travel anywhere across the world, and if you talk about Indian cinema, his name is the one name that really comes up. So I think we'll start with his clip. There's audio as well. Thank you. So that was one of the more famous sequences from this film, Pathir Panchali. It's the rain montage. I mean, of course, we'll be opening it up to questions later on, but I'll just dissect it for you briefly. So this film, of course, Ray was a very political person. So the film, of course, explores a lot of socio-political issues. जैसे 50s or 60s में काफ़ी Bollywood films, actually this is a slightly हटके film है, different film है, but a lot of Bollywood films were also exploring very serious and relevant issues like Mother India and so many other films, which kind of has disappeared from mainstream Bollywood to a large extent today, but is coming back, which is also what I want to get into. But what was interesting about this film is the way Ray has used the technique of montage. Now, montage is actually a technique which was technique of editing, which was developed by Lev Kuleshov, a Soviet filmmaker, and refined by Sergei Eisenstein, another filmmaker. Both of these filmmakers, of course, heavily influenced Ray. And what the montage technique is basically when you take two frames. Let's say I take a frame of all of you sitting here, and I juxtapose it with the forest. When you play those two frames, when you play those two shots, those two scenes together in a sequence, you are automatically drawing a parallel between the two. So the two frames are no longer existing in isolation. Both of them are relating to one another. So for instance, if I were to play that sequence, a short film of all of you sitting here, juxtaposed with the forest, the beach, what have you, what I would understand is that you're also bored listening to me. You'd much rather be on the beach. You'd much rather be hanging out somewhere else. So that's the whole point of the whole the montage technique. It's about bringing two different frames and drawing a parallel between the two. Now, Ray was someone who was very much influenced by the Soviet filmmakers, but also by Italian neorealists. Now, this is another filmic movement. After the Second World War, the film industry of Italy was destroyed. At that time, a lot of the young filmmakers who didn't have any money, they didn't have any support, but they still wanted to make films. They still had that desire. तो उन्होंने, सब मिलकर, they all got together whatever basic resources they could get. अपने दोस्तों के लेकर, instead of professional actors, just their friends, they were shooting instead of sound stages in their friends' houses, in their own houses, on the streets. And so this was again a very big departure from the earlier way of filmmaking, which was very much the Hollywood way of filmmaking, which was a big sound stages. Everything had to be precise. Everything was scripted. There was a formula. So the Italian neorealists broke that formula. The Soviet filmmakers also, in the sense, through the montage technique, really broke that formula. And I think Ray is someone who was, even though he was in ads, he wasn't in feature films, he was aware of what was going on in the world of cinema. And I think he took that montage technique, and also the fact that he worked with non-actors. All of these young people were people in the village. And he was very much working outside of the Bollywood setup in the 50s. So I think that what he was able to actually achieve is through his influences from Soviet and Japanese cinema and Italian cinema, he was able to create a film which was uniquely Indian. Because also another reason why this film is very different is, I'm sure some of you noticed the beautiful sitar work. That's actually the work of Maestro Ravi Shankar, a very young Ravi Shankar at that time. And what the Italian neorealist filmmakers really stressed on was that everything had to be very real. So the music, you couldn't use music like Ray used music here. It had to be music which was within the story, which is what we call diegetic sound. And non-diegetic sound is a soundtrack, which is music or a background score which is imposed on a frame, on a story, on a film, essentially. So of course, Ray being an Indian and with music being such an integral part of our culture, Ray took his Western influences and his Indian upbringing, Eastern upbringing, and kind of created something which is very unique and very powerful. And of course, this film, along with two other films, forms the Apu trilogy, which is one of, it's a collection of 3 films, which is, I think, Ray's most iconic and famous work the world over. So if you guys haven't seen this film, and if you're interested in filmmaking, I urge you to see it. It is a very old film, but I think it's very important for us to understand the trajectory of cinema, particularly in the short span of 100 years, if we really want to understand the new revolutions, the new digital revolutions that are gripping cinema today. So then we can proceed to the next clip, which is About de Souffle. It's a French, I'll just give a brief introduction before we start the clip. This next clip is from a film called Breathless, which it's a film by Jean-Luc Godard, who is one of the greatest living filmmakers, I think the greatest living filmmaker of all time. He is a French-Swiss filmmaker, and he was quite famous because he's one of the first people who, he was one of the proponents of the French New Wave, which was another film movement, cinematic movement in the 60s, which, similar to the Italian neorealists, the French New Wave filmmakers were people who they were actually critics. They were people they were scholars, they were academics in cinema, in the language of cinema. And then when they weren't happy with the way cinema was going, which was very much dominated by Hollywood, internationally by the golden age of Hollywood, they decided to make their own films. And it was a bunch of guys, again, with very little resources, hardly any money, just getting their friends, and again, basically breaking all the rules. And we're going to see this clip and see how Jean-Luc Godard broke some very fundamental rules to create a new cinematic language. So yeah, let's take a look at that clip.
Tu ne l'as plus?
Elle est au garage.
Et ta Ford, tu ne l'as plus?
Elle est au garage. Allez, quoi, je reste avec toi.
De toute façon, j'ai mal à la tête.
On ne sera pas ensemble, mais je voudrais rester à côté de toi.
Non, ce n'est pas ça, Michel. Pourquoi vous êtes triste?
Parce que je suis triste.
C'est idiot. Pourquoi tu es triste? C'est mieux quand je dis vous ou tu.
Pareil, je peux pas me passer de toi.
Tu peux très bien.
Oui, mais je veux pas. Regarde une Talbot, elle est belle, 2,5 litres.
Tu es un garçon.
Quoi?
Je ne sais pas.
Patricia, regarde-moi. C'est interdit d'aller voir ce type. Hélas, hélas, hélas. J'aime une fille qui a une très jolie nuque, de très jolis seins, une très jolie voix, de très jolis poignets, un très joli front, de très jolis genoux. Mais qui est lâche.
C'est là, stop.
Attends, je vais me carrer, quoi.
Sorry, कोई subtitles नहीं थे उसमें, but you honestly did not need to understand any of it. Because, I mean, the whole point is I don't know if any of you noticed why this was a very special clip. क्योंकि इसमें basically the use of editing बहुत ही अलग से है, बहुत ही different है, उस time के लिए बहुत ही unique है. So basically, I'll rewind a bit. When I was talking about Hollywood and the rules that Hollywood had imposed on filmmakers and on cinema worldwide, there was a rule of editing. So for instance, you had, whenever you were changing from one angle to another angle, you had to move 30 degrees. You had to move the camera 30 degrees so that there would be a smooth transition. Now, this was another rule of filmmaking that the powers that be, the guys in Hollywood, had decided. And what Jean-Luc Godard did was he basically, he shot a film which was actually a bit too long. And so his producers had told him to cut it down. And so what he did was, instead of actually cutting out scenes, he cut out individual frames within a scene, or within a shot as well. And this is what created the jump cut effect. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the camera actually is on one angle only, and it is jumping very abruptly from within one shot. There's a temporal disruption. So that kind of creates a very jagged experience, and it kind of like, it makes the viewer very, I mean, almost uncomfortable. And that was actually what these guys were going for. So a lot of people say that this was a fluke, that Jean-Luc Godard was just, playing a joke on his producers. And then when he did this, when he created this film and everyone started going wah-wah and, like basically going crazy that someone had done something so radical and so different and so brave. That's when he kind of said, yeah, that was what I was planning all along. But yeah, I think this technique is, of course, very much influenced by Bertolt Brecht. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Brecht. He was a theater playwright and who basically he had a different approach to theater, the Brechtian approach, where in his time, in his context, which was a few years before, he said that the performer must draw the attention of the audience to himself or herself as a performer. So you as the audience need to be very aware that you are actually watching a performance, that you're not watching a play, that you're not being swept away by the reality of a play as if you're watching something real, or that when you're watching a film you get lost in the film thinking that it's something real. You have to be acutely aware that it is fake, that it is something that is being created, that's being set up for you to experience. 5 minutes left, that's it? Oh, wow, okay. Wow, I really took a long time with these clips, it seems. So anyway, I guess I'll just skip along. So what I basically wanted to say, show you with these clips is that small revolutions, small innovations in the history of cinema have created so much change, have created so much, have completely revolutionized the way we look at film, which is what is leading up to the digital age. Now, I have a film as well, so if I'm running out of time, I may as well show you the trailers. So we'll skip to... There are two trailers. One is the M Cream International trailer. No, we're skipping that now. ये जो next वाला है ना, M Cream International.
बेदली के सूखे पत्तों में छुपी ये पत्थर दिल पीढ़ी है मेरी। ऊंच नीच की बेड़ियां पैरों में पहने चमकीले भूतों को पकड़ने की कोशिश में ये पेड़ मगर सूखता जा रहा है। आसमानों में मंडरा रहे हैं बादलों के झुंड।
Oh, J. Meet Figs. Figs, J.
Interesting name.
Yeah, it's short for Figaro.
So, Figaro, what's your deal?
मुझे तो बस चरस से प्यार।
Wow.
देख ले यार, कुछ क्रीम हो तो। M cream भाईजी, the best hash in the world. One puff and nirvan.
Anyway, so where can we get some cream?
So there is a place way up in the hills. No official record of its existence. Not on the map, but the chosen few call it माँ बाबा जागल। बरखुरदार कहाँ चल दिए? Road trip.
Road trip? What are you talking about? Are you serious? We're not so different, you and I.
You drunk already?
No.
Well, maybe a little.
It's our annual moon rave tonight.
Moon rave. What's that?
You know, you created such a mess last night. And I was only trying to help you here.
Hi, my name's Jayashree Bose. That's Figs. We heard through a friend that you were in the area and about what's going on here, and we thought we could, well, volunteer.
Here we are. And now what?
Okay, this was the festival trailer. Now I'll show you the theatrical trailer, so you'll get to see the difference between. We can play the next one.
I know the world's a fucked up place, but I'm also smart enough to know that there's nothing that you or I, sitting here in this farmhouse, can do about it. Surya Namaskar.
Been waiting for you for over an hour, beta.
रहे थे कि आपको कॉर्पोरेट
मुझे तो बस चरस से प्यार।
We're doing a case study on refugees.
Psychopath isn't exactly a novelty. No, not you.
Don't make me use force.
Force is good.
बरखुरदार कहाँ चल दिए?
Road trip.
रोशनी और
Yeah, I am.
खबरें हर तरफ हवाओं में भी
हम लोग इस वक्त है कहाँ?
The abode of Aphrodite.
World in shades of black and white. And now there's all this color. We're not so different.
You drunk already? M cream भाईजी the best है.
One puff and it. Could I interest you in some acid?
Who the fuck do you think you are? Why is it not fucking easy?
You're nothing but a moment's sunlight fading in the grass.
You fucking talk.
It sounds beautiful.
It's been quite the journey, Figaro.
Any chance I can get some? Mal. Mal. Oh. Mal. Ah, Mal.
Yeah. Thank you. So, I'm sorry the playback was not working fine, but you guys can go on YouTube and the trailer is available there, and the website is also there. So this was basically my first feature film that was released this past July after traveling to about 30 film festivals and winning 10 awards. It was also screened in Jaipur at the film festival. Unfortunately, we didn't release the film here because I think we were releasing the same weekend as Madari and Kabali and Sultan was playing, and it was just very hard. But you guys can catch the film hopefully online, and we'll be also releasing on Netflix worldwide next month.
Nice. Questions, please? Can we have the lights on at the back? Lights on, kar dijiye. Questions?
Any questions? I know I didn't talk too much about the new digital revolutions in film because I was going a lot into history and the time ran out. But any questions you guys have about filmmaking? Any of you who are interested in exploring, filmmaking career or acting or anything like that, or making a film? There has to be someone.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, I think that the stoner genre is kind of a very new genre. And if you look at this film, there was a lot of controversy. Is it India's first stoner film? Is it not India's first stoner film? And I think that it is a stoner film, but it's a different kind of stoner film. But I do think that the fact of the matter is that a lot of young people, particularly in colleges, are experimenting with drugs. And in fact, Urta Punjab had just come out before our film, and that had taken a very strong anti-drug stand, whereas our film kind of was a little more radical in that it didn't take a pro or anti-stand. It kind of just showed the reality of the youth and kind of left the viewer to kind of take what they would from that. So I think that it is a reality that a lot of young people are facing. And for me, cinema is not something that we should shy away from reality. So basically, इसमें चार युवाओं की कहानी है, and Basically जो आज की youth में बदलाव की मानसिकता है, the desire to change, the desire to change the world, changing tomorrow. I think that is something which is also very much a part of this new generation of the youth. So of course you have rebellion, and rebellion can take many forms. It can of course be drugs, but it can also be something very positive. And that is also what the film was kind of trying to explore and analyze, is the desire of the young people to take their claim in the world and to kind of fight for something that they believe in. Yeah.
I have a question. I want to learn filmmaking, but, I do not have the time to indulge in a 2-year course. So do you think a short course is also valuable?
I do. I think also it really depends on what kind of film, what you want. If you want to be a director, I think that a short course would not be that valuable, to be honest.
Really?
If you want to be a technician, like a cinematographer or an editor or a sound person, then I think that a short course can be of great value. Because I think, honestly, being a director, being a visionary, it's more about just living life. I don't think you can really learn too much about that. I think what you can really gain from these courses is technical know-how rather than any kind of artistic insight. I think that is something that takes many years to actually build.
So what does one do who has crossed the age of going back to college for 2 years? Is it then assisting somebody that would help, or is it just, starting off and making mistakes? How does one, tell me, how shall I go about it?
Right. Well, if you want to be a director, I wouldn't rule out also doing courses, because I think the interesting thing about doing courses like summer schools, there are a lot of wonderful film schools around the world and in India as well. FTII also has a summer film appreciation workshop, which is a little different. But there are film schools across Europe and the US which do more directorial-oriented short courses. I think the interesting thing is to meet other filmmakers and kind of like build a network through that. Of course, assisting is probably a way that a lot of filmmakers, a lot of the big filmmakers we see around today have actually started as assistant directors, and kind of that has been the journey for them. So that's also definitely something that I would say could be beneficial, but it's a very dog-eat-dog world out there in Bombay, especially if you're an assistant director, so you have to have the mettle. So yeah, but yeah, that's definitely one option.
You seem like a nice person. Are you looking for an assistant director?
I might be. I'll give you my my
Okay,
card
done,
afterwards.
done.
Last question.
Hi, sir. What's the easiest way to reduce noise from a movie?
Reduce noise, as in you mean in the soundtrack?
Yeah, unwanted noises from the movie.
Okay, unwanted noises. So, so the thing is, like earlier, now we do a lot of films with sync sound, so we're shooting and recording sound simultaneously. Before, that wasn't really done. Everything was usually done in dubs, and all the sound was put in afterwards. But now the fashion is very much to do sync sound, even though a lot of filmmakers and people say that India is too noisy a place to do sync sound films. And in fact, in this film also, we did sync sound. We spent a lot of money on that. And then Karkarake, we had to do about, I think 40% of the film had to be redubbed after taking all that trouble. So I think that it depends in terms of noise, whether it's dialogue or it's ambience. There are a lot of different softwares, of course. Pro Tools has a lot of plugins. There are a lot of softwares out there. There's people who specialize just in this, in removing noise from tracks, from audio, from dialogue. And if that fails, then you have to, there's very little that you can do. You need to actually get good, clean audio, because otherwise you'll have to like record it afterwards. So yeah, there's not much room for error. Great, but thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Agneya. Thanks a lot. It was a wonderful session. Moving on, we have another session, and that would be by Priya Kumar. So next session would be around Dream, Dare, Deliver. The session in this which Priya would be talking about the power of being self-motivated and how it's important for individuals from all parts of life to have the power and courage to take charge of their own lives and dream, dare, deliver the greatness that is within them. Thank you.
Yeah.
You want to say something?
Yeah, no, I just want to thank you all, and I have some brochures with an email, so if you have any more questions, feel free to email me. And thanks again.
Okay. Thanks, Agneya. Thank you.